Yellow. Check 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2.
Lift him up. Still he speaks from eternity. He said, and if I be lifted up, I'll lift him up. Still. And all I want is all I want is yeah. Say it again. Say all I That's it, cry out. Lift him up. Lift him up. Still he speaks from eternity. He said, and if I be lifted up from the earth, I'll draw all men unto me. Yeah, lift him up. Somebody lift him up. Still he speaks from eternity. Yeah, he said, if I be lifted up from the earth, I'll draw me nearer, blessed to the cross where thou hast died. Draw me nearer, blessed Lord, to thy Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. There is something about your name. Oh, Master, Savior, Jesus. and earth, let all heaven and earth, let all heaven and earth proclaim. Keep and pass away. There is your name, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. God, there is something about your name.
am praying, blessed Savior, and my constant prayer shall be for a perfect consecration that shall make me more like Thee. I am praying, blessed Savior, to be more and more like Thee. I am praying that Thy Spirit, like a dove, may rest on me. Thou knowest all my weakness. Thou knowest all my care. While I plead each precious promise, hear, oh, hear and answer prayer. I am praying, blessed Savior, for a faith so clear and bright that I will see Thy glory, the deepest, darkest night. Thou knowest all my weakness. Thou knowest all my care. While I plead each precious promise, hear, oh, hear and answer prayer. Thou who knowest all my weakness, Thou who knowest all my care. While I plead precious promise, hear, oh, hear and answer prayer. Thou knowest all my weakness. Thou you know all I care. While I plead each precious promise, hear, oh, hear and answer prayer. Thou knowest all my weakness. Thou knowest all my care. While I plead each precious promise, hear, oh, hear and answer prayer. Thou knowest all my weakness. Thou
May God be gracious to us, bless us, make His face shine upon us, that your ways, Lord, may be known on the earth, your salvation among all the nations. Lord, you're so good. We thank you for your goodness to us.
Good night, brothers and sisters in Christ, and I take this opportunity to welcome you to Ebenezer Methodist Church in Old Road in St. Kitts as we continue on the second leg of our journey this evening for our revival services with the focus on our health and wellness this evening. I welcome you and pray that as we worship and we fellowship, the great physician on high will visit us as well as empower and direct the thoughts and the minds of the physicians we have here amongst us. We begin this evening with our devotional aspect, and with a few choruses. I now will invite the worship team to start, and this will be followed by prayer, and then the persons who have come to educate us, to share, and to fellowship with us will take over. So welcome, and may your hearts be richly blessed this evening.
Please stand and wait.
Jesus is the rock which I stand. Jesus is the rock on which I stand. Jesus is the rock on which I stand. Jesus is the rock on which I stand. About love for me. Thank you.
Thing in your hands. You are our great physician. There is none like you, the healer of healers. We look to you, God. You call people into your business, and you give them your wisdom, you give them your knowledge, and you give them your understanding. So even now, oh God, as we meet for this health discussion, and even as you have selected these doctors, Dr. Christmas, Lord God, you know them by name, you know them by nature. And so, the Father God, we present them to you, that your holy anointing will be upon them. So even as we listen, oh God, attentively, we hear you speaking to us, oh God. There are many questions that may be going through our minds concerning our health. So, loving God, we look to you for the answers this evening. We look to you, God, for revelation. Take control, Lord. Use them mightily and powerfully. Lord, you have called them into your business. Work through them, oh God. Your people look to you. Your people depend on you. In the name of Jesus, by the power of the Holy Spirit, oh God, let your anointing be upon them now and even forevermore, as they avail themselves to you, as they give their hearts to you, as they say, take my life, Lord, and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. As they say, Lord, use me for the honor and glory of your name. Let it be easy for you, Lord. Father, hear the cry. And even now as we come, our expectations are from you. Let us hear, O God. Let us leave this place, Father God, well informed as you speak to us, even through your people. In the sweet name of Jesus Christ we pray, now and forevermore. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Lord.
Amen.
Yes, we want to thank Sister Petra Matthew for the invocation and the blessings on this evening's fellowship service. I want to take this opportunity to say we have in our midst and to welcome in a very official way the minister, our minister for this congregation, the Reverend Alfred Matthew, and his wife, Sister Petra Matthew. I want to welcome also our friends and members from visiting congregations, visiting churches around the community, and to say how happy we are that you have come to share with us this evening. From the Wesleyan Holiness, we have from the Grace Gospel, we have from, I think, the Catholic, the Anglican, the Pilgrim, and of course, other members of the community. But I want to welcome in our midst this evening our doctors, and our host is none other this evening, moderator, Dr. Johnson Norton, who is our doctor here in the district of Old Road. We love him dearly, and we are happy to have him. So I welcome him as he moderates for us this evening. Welcome, Dr. Johnson, and he will welcome his other co-workers. May God bless us as we listen and we share. And may the honor and the glory be none other to Almighty God. Thank you. Welcome.
All right. Good evening, everyone. All right. I'm glad that so many people came to the Health Forum. As I was introduced, I'm Dr. Jensen Morton. I know some of you know me, some of you might not know me. As I was introduced, I am the District Medical Officer for the Old Road District. That's from, as you see on the paper, from Brimstone Hill Road until Trinity. I'm also actually the District Medical Officer for Sandy Points area as well. So when I was given the invitation to assist with this entire health forum, I was more than overjoyed to try to see how I could contribute towards improving the health and wellness of the persons in the community. Being the health center, I would see persons on a regular basis, usually persons with chronic ailments that really could benefit from having a nice setting in which a wide variety of health questions could be asked, and have the specific experts in different areas be able to give you a well-tailored, well-constructed answer. Especially now that we're going through a global pandemic, more and more people are realizing the importance of generally having a good state of health, part one, and part two, ensuring that they're as well educated as possible with regards to different aspects of their own bodies and their own health and well-being. So this evening, we had planned to have a series of 4 medical professionals here. I'm going to have to apologize for 2 in particular. One of them, Dr. Grant Tate, she's the oncologist. That means that she's a specialist that deals with cancer patients. Unfortunately, she's ill currently, so she won't be able to make it this evening. And the specialist in internal medicine that we have here, Dr. Drew, he's running a bit late, but he should be here unless we are told otherwise. But in the meantime, 2 of the others here, we have Dr. Joylette Woodley Fasali. So Dr. Woodley is many things. She's a general surgeon, first of all. And the important thing is that she was actually the first female general surgeon in St. Kitts and Nevis. So very important. She works at the hospital in JNF, and apart from that, she also works at Oasis Medical on South Independence Square Street. And we have with us here Dr. Christmas, Dr. Trevor Christmas. So Dr. Christmas is one of the most experienced dentists in St. Kitts and Nevis. He has 16 years experience. He previously worked at the hospital in Sandy Point. He's now stationed in Molyneux. He also works at the City Dental Facility on Rosemary Lane. Oh, you can? Yeah. Okay. So it was a nice panel that was organized. It wasn't even organized by me, but it was a nice panel that was organized. Your internal medicine, your general surgery, your oncology, or your people forget about their teeth and their mouth and their oral health. Even though keeping that in good condition, it can have an overall very significant effect on your health and well-being. So this evening, we didn't really plan to have lectures, as in it wasn't planned for anyone to come up here, just pick a topic and then just deliver this one specific topic to you. It's really going to be an open discussion in which the panelists will be free to, weigh in on any of the significant health issues in St. Kitts and Nevis right now. So because we're in the midst of the global pandemic, some people are a bit tunnel visioned with regards to their health and they're only focusing on the COVID. You have an entire body with all kinds of organs in it still, and you have to keep everything else that's in your body in proper working order. So I'm going to kindly ask Dr. Woodley to say a few words in terms of her introduction and maybe just a few other things that she notices with regard to healthcare in her field that she thinks is of a great concern. So.
Okay, pleasant good night to everyone. It's actually indeed a pleasure being here. This church is no stranger to me. I can recall as a child, I visited this church on many occasions because, as many of you would know, my mom is Sister Maureen Woodley. So each time I came over here, my seat used to be somewhere behind there with my dad and my other siblings, and I remember Miss Small still looking the same way, and we singing and having fun. So I remember most persons here, I remember them. So it is very nice being back. My heart was warmed with the singing. I really enjoy that because sometimes as doctors, we get so busy. Sometimes we don't get to pass through the doors as often as we should. So it is indeed a pleasure being here. It is indeed a pleasure worshiping with you tonight as well. As Dr. Morton said, and it's very important, we are somewhat tunnel visioned because of the COVID pandemic, and rightly so. But as he also said, we have other organs in our body, and what I'm finding in my practice is that we are forgetting a lot of things. We are forgetting about the diabetes, we are forgetting about our high blood pressure, we are forgetting about even just taking care of ourselves genuinely, how we look. I normally tell my patients, self-care is family care. If you take care of yourself, you can take care of your family better. Self-care, as for me, is patient care. Once I take care of myself, I can take care of my patients better. Self-care is children care. Once you take care of you, you will your family, your friends, and everybody. So it is important that we focus on self sometimes. I know some persons may say it is selfish, but you can only give the best of you if you are at your best. And many times we tend to put ourselves on the back burner, and then we are frustrated, we are grumpy, and we cannot give our best selves to our brothers and sisters. We cannot interact with other people because we are tired, we are hungry, we are frustrated, we don't take time out to do things. So as Dr. Morton said, we need to have this holistic approach to health. We need to take care of ourselves so we can take care of others. When your cup is runneth over, then you'll be able to give the best of you to other people. During this COVID pandemic, what I am seeing is a lot of diabetics coming through my doors at my private office and at the hospital with their feet on the verge of cutting off. That has surged, and it is very sad because we have young persons. I'm not even seeing the older folks in the 50s, in the 60s coming into me. I'm seeing the younger population in their middle 40s, in their 30s, and they are losing their limbs. They are losing toes, they are losing half of their foot, they are losing the leg, sometimes they lose up until their thighs. In all my years of studying, I read about losing your hand and your forearm and your arm. I read about it. Since the pandemic has started, I have already done 2 upper limb amputations, which is very rare. I can understand sometimes you may not see your foot, you may not look down as often as you should, but your hand is here. So what that is telling me, there is almost a total neglect of self-care, and that is alarming. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, I then ask the next question, are you taking care of your family members, your children, if you're not looking at yourself? So I want to focus a little bit on that, and as the discussion goes on, it's going to be interactive. You're going to speak with me, we're going to speak back to you, but what is happening with our diabetic patients, I do not know what is happening. I do not believe it's lack of information, but what I do believe, there is some fear. I still do believe that our diabetic patients are fearful to go and see a doctor, to see a nurse, to see somebody in the health profession who can help them. As a diabetic, and we all, I'm sure that inside here, we all know someone who is diabetic. If you are not diabetic yourself, what is the problem? One, we're not taking our medication. We are not. God has given wisdom to the doctors, to the scientists to create these medications. It's not a magic trick, it's not something that is being pulled out of a hat. The medication, they have been tested and tried, and they work. But patients refuse to take the medication. If you are diagnosed with something and you are given a medication, it's for a reason. So I'm still yet to understand why we are not, most diabetics are not taking their patients. That is why we need the pastors, we need the preachers, we need everybody on board to help these patients. What is happening? Why are you not taking your sugar tablets? When you don't, your sugar skyrockets. When your sugar gets high, what happens? Your wounds will not heal. When your wounds will not heal, what happens? It gets infected. The sad thing now, it gets infected, what happens? You're not seeing a doctor. So then what is the next step? By the time that person is dragged to me, whether at the hospital or not, I most times have to end up in the operating room, removing that part of the limb. All because we are not taking care of ourselves. The amputations between January and February have gone up sky high. And this is something that is real. Amputations are happening on a weekly, almost on a daily basis. Dr. Morton, he constantly consults with me. Dr. Woodley, I have this patient. I'm going to send them up to look at the foot. All it takes is just for the doctor to look at your foot and give you the okay, or just give you some medication and get it cured. So we need to run away or stop being afraid of visiting the doctor, because at the end of the day, it's going to be detrimental. And these young persons, they have children at school. They still have mortgages paying. These are young people. I consider, I don't hit 40. When I was younger at 20, when I saw somebody at 40, it's like, wow, that's old. Now I'm 40, it's like, okay, I'm young. So, and I am getting persons in their 50s and early 60s, 30s, and they're losing limbs. And it's happening, as we would say, in the street parlance, left, right, and center. They're not even losing hands and forearms. So we have taken it to a different level now. And we need everybody to be in everybody's business. Some persons may say, okay, you're fast, but ask sister, hey, Sister Small, God forbid, did you take so-and-so your medication this morning? Sister so-and-so, are you keeping up with your blood sugar checks at the health center? What I have found, we have moved away from this community approach to each other, and we are more into ourselves. Or sometimes we are afraid to ask questions because we don't want to be embarrassed by somebody giving us a bad answer, so we are not asking. But we are seeing it at the hospital, the repercussions. They come through the doors of the hospital or our private offices. So that's one of the number one problems that we are seeing surging right now. The diabetic foot and the rate of amputations hitting sky levels at this moment. So if you have a friend who's diabetic, even if he gets a bite from an ant, do not take it lightly. I have seen persons lose limbs just from an ant bite, especially if you are diabetic. If you're walking through the grass and a blade of leaf actually give you a small cut, as a diabetic, that's something you should take seriously. Even if you're walking on the hot pitch outside, that can cause a lesion or a skin cut, and that can be dangerous as well. So as a diabetic, there's nothing simple for you. Life has changed. I know some persons would say, I'm not claiming it. I don't want it. But I'm a realist. When the blood levels come back indicating X, Y, and Z to me as a doctor, I'm a scientist. Medicine is evidence-based. When the results come back and some person said to me they're not claiming it, then sometimes that is bad, because those are the persons who would not see the doctor, those are the persons who would not take the medication, those are the persons who would just ignore that they have something and do not try to look at their feet at the end of the day looking for any problems. As I said to people, let us pray together, but let's pray and take the medication together. If you are afraid, come to me afraid early than come to me afraid and it's too late. We will work through it. And the beauty that you have with us, I don't like to say, but the younger doctors, we're just so down to earth. You can meet Dr. Morton, Dr. Christmas anywhere, stop them and ask a question. We mingle, we interact. This is not where we feel as if we are there and the patients are there. No. We are part of the community. We are part of you. And we really want to see health in the Federation go to a next level. But as a doctor, I can't give 80% and my patient is giving me 20%. It does not work like that. We have to meet each other halfway. Okay? So as we go into the discussion, I'm not going to hog the mic, and trust me, I can do that. Sister Woodley is my mother, we like to talk. I'm going to let Dr. Christmas come in, and feel free, whatever questions you may have to ask. But what I want persons to remember, self-care is family care. Self-care is children care. For me, self-care is patient care. Once I take care of me, I can give the best of me to everybody else. Okay? So if there's one thing I want you to leave here with is that. So as we go through the night, feel free to ask any questions. I'm going to put a disclaimer in. We're not going to know everything. And if we don't know, or if you ask me a question and I don't know, I will be more than happy to get back to you, go home, research it, and get back to you. But diabetes, it is really knocking us hard during this pandemic. And I really need everyone to pay special attention. If one, you are a diabetic, and two, if you know anyone who is diabetic. So I stay here for now and let Dr. Christmas come in.
Okay, good night to everyone. Like Dr. Woodley, I would like to acknowledge my foundation in the Methodist Church also. During my teenage years was spent in the Methodist Church, involved in youth fellowship and different activities. And it's something that I think had some bearing in the foundation that made me who I am today. So tonight I'm here to speak about the teeth. Dr. Woodley mentioned about persons being fearful. And I think if the session tonight was about just dental care, maybe we might have had half of the persons here tonight. Persons seem to be naturally afraid of the dentist. Just the mere mention of the dentist. You have persons' blood pressure going up. You have persons feeling sick. It's just amazing the kind of reaction people get just to go to the dentist. But I'm here tonight and I would just like to dispel some of those fears, some of those myths, some of those false notions that you might have about going to the dentist. Because at the end of the day, our oral health is very important. When you think about oral health, one of the first things that come to your mind is a smile. Your smile is very important. Your smile is almost like a currency that you can use in order to communicate to others. You can go down to the Chinese supermarket right now and without knowing one word of Chinese, and you smile and you get a warm reaction from one of the guys there. But if you go in and you're not smiling and you're all serious, I mean, they could even think that you might come there to rob them. And that's what a smile does. A smile does so many things. You know, sometimes you might be feeling down, you might have had some bad news, something strange happen, and you just see somebody smile, and they say, you just make my day by seeing you smile. You just make me feel so different with that smile. And so, not just only with a smile, your teeth, they're important because they help you to pronounce your words. They help you to chew your food properly. I've had patients who doesn't have any teeth and they tell me that they know how to bite up bones and things like that. Could you imagine someone just biting up bones and their gums? But your teeth, they're important because they help you to chew your food properly so that you can digest your food. So it's important that you preserve and take care of your teeth. There are some persons that only come to the dentist when they have pain. You wouldn't see them no other time. But the only time they come is when they have pain. There's some persons you give them medication, and once the pain goes away, you don't see them again. They only remember the dentist when the pain starts again. And tonight, I don't want any of you to be that kind of patient. You should visit the dentist regularly, at least every 6 months, to get your teeth checked, to get your teeth clean. There's some persons who say, well, I don't feel anything wrong with my teeth, so I don't see the reason to go to the dentist. We have vehicles, those of you who drive, and I'm certain that you get your vehicles serviced on a regular basis. And if we were treating our vehicles how we treat ourselves sometimes, these vehicles would have been long destroyed, fall apart on the road. And some persons, they stay up to date. I mean, they don't miss going to service their vehicles. They don't miss tuning up their vehicles. But we neglect looking after ourselves. As Dr. Woodley complained, persons, they're not coming to the doctor. The same way persons, they're not visiting the dentist. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. I would also like to touch on self-care. I mean, she spoke about self-care. And, you know, some persons, they don't take care of the teeth and they come to the dentist and they expect the dentist to do a miracle. They expect you to transform what they neglected to do for years and they expect you to just turn it around in one visit. But we're not magicians and you can only accomplish certain things by maintenance, by regular maintenance, by visiting the dentist regularly, to have your general checkups, to have your cleanings done. Because it's only when you do these things you're able to identify problems at an early stage. Sometimes persons come to the dentist and the reality is that their teeth could be in such a bad state that one of the only solutions left is to do extractions. And you know, the funny thing, sometimes persons come to the dentist and they say, but I don't want to lose any more teeth. I don't want to pull out this tooth. But if you come to the dentist and your tooth or your teeth, they're shaking and they could hardly stand upright. I mean, the only solution is to do extractions on these teeth. And some persons, they come and they're apprehensive because they don't want to do extractions because they said, I've lost too many teeth during my early years. But they wait too late to come and say, well, they want to save these teeth. You know, some persons come with the mentality also, they say, well, I'm old now, so I don't need any teeth, just pull them out. That's the reality. I mean, some persons, they come to the dentist and they might have had a weekend of pain, and they come and they say, but just take them all out. I can't bear this pain anymore. So we don't want you to reach to that stage where you just show up and you're not thinking rationally and you decide you want to do and you want to take out all your teeth. You know, the funny thing, some persons, they come to the dentist and they decide they want to take out all their teeth. And for them, they feel like that's the best solution because they don't have to worry about toothache anymore. They don't have to worry about anything bothering them. So they decide they want to get some false teeth. They want to get some other person's teeth. And you know the funny thing, they get the false teeth and they don't take care of the false teeth either. They don't clean the false teeth. They don't do checks on the false teeth. Some of them, the teeth might break out of the false teeth and they don't go back to repair it. They just walk around like that. They figure, well, it's not paining me, so I could just leave it like that. But just like everything else, you have to do maintenance. I've seen some patients who told me that they have their dentures like 40 years. I mean, you can't wear a pair of shoes for 40 years. But you're eating on these dentures on a daily basis. So over time, the teeth, they would wear down. Certain things would have broken off. But these persons, they say, but they're fitting me good, so I don't see the reason why I need to go to the dentist or do anything with them. But what I want to say to you tonight is that even when you're wearing dentures, it's not the end-all solution to your dental problems. So you need to still visit the dentist so that you can have your gums checked also. Persons develop problems on their gums. They develop infections on their gums. And this could be developed from wearing dentures for an extended period of time and not using them properly. So it's important also that persons wearing dentures visit the dentist regularly. Cancer is one disease that's prevalent, very common around here lately. And also we have seen persons who suffer from oral cancers. So it's something that we have to be on the lookout for also. Oral care is very important. Sometimes a lot of diseases that persons suffer from, you have oral manifestations. So sometimes the dentist is able to identify certain signs and symptoms of diseases just from doing dental examinations. So tonight I just want to say to you that the dentist is not the scary monster that persons make us out to be. So please feel free to visit the dentist regularly just so that you can have your checks and make sure that everything is in good condition.
All right. Okay, thank you, Dr. Christmas. Thank you, Dr. Woodley. So like we said, this forum is going to be one with a lot of open discussion, lots of question and answer, and we're going to allow everyone here to have the freedom to ask the questions that they have, and we as the panel will try our hardest to give you the best possible answer that we can. So we're going to now open the floor immediately, and we're going to see or try to answer any question that anyone may have on anything health related.
While persons are thinking of their questions, just want to piggyback a bit on what Dr. Christmas has said in terms of getting your teeth checked. Persons who are diabetics, they end up losing their teeth very early because of the nature of being diabetic. Because the high blood sugar causes nerve damage, etc., etc. These persons normally can get gum infections easily, and then sometimes this can lead to them losing their teeth as well. So that is why, as he has said, it is very important, yes, for everyone, but even more so if you are diabetic, for you to go and get your checkup on a regular basis so this does not happen to you. Okay?
The question can be on anything. Okay.
There's
yes.
somebody at the back. Mm-hmm.
Good night. My question is it normal for a diabetic to be hungry every 2 hours?
But a diabetic is a human being, and yes, that diabetic can be hungry every 2 hours. But the problem with diabetics, you should try to get sugars that would last in your system. So which means we need to have a diet high in fiber. What we are trying to do, we are trying for the sugar to get into your bloodstream bit by bit, slowly, so you do not get cravings and you don't get hungry. Okay? So what a diabetic, and there's a misconception that diabetics should not eat. That is actually the opposite. A diabetic should have his or her breakfast, there's a snack, there's lunch, there's a snack, and there is dinner. But it's what you eat. So now when you're going to eat, you should always try to have a salad, high fiber, or anything that has high fiber. For example, your wheat bread. Do a nice salad. So what this would do, this would allow the sugar to go into your blood slowly and maintain that level of sugar in your blood that is needed to keep you alert, moving around, walking, working, etc. You don't want fast sugars like the white bread, the sweets, the chocolate. If not, these sugars get burned up very fast, and then within 2 hours, you'll be hungry again. So I normally tell my diabetic patients, especially for your lunch, you have your plate. You should divide your plate in half. Now, half of your plate that you would have divided in half should be divided again in half, and a quarter of it should be your meat, or what we would say your relish, and that should fit in the palm of your hand. So this big slab of meat, and this big chicken leg, and this whole lot of big fish. Sometimes the fish can't even hold in the plate. That's not how it's supposed to be. Your meat, or what we call the relish, should fit in your palm of your hand. Now, in the other quarter below, you should have your starch. And that starch should be a starch that is not one of those simple starches that just break down quickly and give you that sugar rush. It's a starch with a high fiber in it as well. So, for example, you can do your rice and peas. But try to have more peas than the rice. Or you can do your greens, try to have more greens than rice. And it's a small serving, you know. You know, when you watch some people play, you see a mountain. That's not supposed to happen. It's a nice small serving that you give of your rice and peas, or your rice and greens. If you're going to have a macaroni pie, it's a square again, but it's supposed to fit in your palm of your hand. If you're going to do a potato, and it's always best to do, you can do your sweet potato because it has high fiber as well. But you can't do the biggest potato, big like my head. It's a small, medium size. You can do 2 medium-sized potatoes. And let me highlight here, you cannot have rice, macaroni pie, and the sweet potato on the same plate. Is either or. Is one of them, not all 3. Now, remember the plate. So that half of the plate was divided in half, where you had your meat above, as we would say the relish, and your starch below. And now the other half now is salad and vegetables. That's what we're supposed to eat. It seems as if it's something cultural for us that we like to see a plate full and running over. And trust me, I have that same problem with my mother. The other day, she invited me to a buffet, and I was shocked because many of them in there were diabetics. And if I was taken back when I saw the plates. High, food falling off. And then they're going back for seconds. And I'm saying to myself, but wait, I show sister so-and-so diabetic, you know what? Why her plate so full? And then my mother now trying not to make eye contact with me because I'm watching her plate too. And she's just keeping her head straight. And then like say, you see mommy plate over there? So it's portion size. And I think culturally we love to eat until we get what we call niggeritis, or we sleepy. We're not supposed to eat until we get sleepy. Something is wrong. You're supposed to eat enough to get satisfied and that you can move on working. So when you're eating and you get sleepy afterwards, or you have to unbutton your belt, then something went wrong. You have eaten too much. Okay? So yes, to your question, yes, diabetics, we can get hungry if you're not eating correctly. And the snack you can have in between, you have these oat bars, you have granola. You can even do your own if you don't want to, go that way. You can get the same granola in the packet. You can roast them. You can carry a fruit. And another thing, I see we're buying all these smoothies. And the smoothies having like almost 1 million fruits. What we have to remember, fruits have their own sugars. And we have this misconception that it's natural, so it's okay. Cyanide is natural too, but it's not okay. You understand? So when you're going to get your smoothies, you have to be very selective. You can't have 6 and 7 fruits, just one. One fruit, but you can throw in some kale, you can throw in some spinach, you can throw in every other thing. And as a diabetic, stay away from the bananas, stay away from the pineapples, they're very sweet. And the mango season coming up again. And I don't understand how people can sit down and eat a tub of mango. 6 and 7 and 8 mangoes. Actually, mangoes are good for diabetics, but just one.
Yeah, but not a lot.
2, mango has high fiber. It's very good for diabetics. But when you're going to let your friend from Nevis bring down a whole box, and even before the box leaves the pier, it done half already. And that is the problem. During mango season, the rate of amputation goes up too. It goes up because we are consuming all of this sugar. The sugar now prevents you from healing, and once you don't heal, we know what happens. So to your question, ma'am, diabetics, if you don't eat correctly, that is when you will be getting hungry every 2 hours. We have nutritionists on island. There's Mistress Duncan at the Ministry of Health. There's Miss Stevens at Medical Associates on Victoria Road. These people can teach you how to eat. And like it or not, we do not know how to eat. Whether you're diabetic or not, we don't eat correctly. We do not. So these persons, so we have help here on the island. Most of my patients, I would send them to these 2 young ladies. And when they get back to me, they say, oh my God, Dr. Woodley, I didn't realize I was doing this thing wrong. Even as a diabetic, you should eat your greens and vegetables first, then your meat, and you leave the starch for last. With the perception or with the idea that by the time you reach the starch, you would have already full up your belly, that you wouldn't really want to eat too much starch, which is the culprit of you having high blood sugar. So if you learn to eat correctly, you will not be getting hungry every 2 hours, whether you are diabetic or not. So to answer your question, we need to learn how to eat correctly. Online, you have so many things. If you don't know, afterwards I can give you the numbers to these dietitians. You can speak with them and they can teach you how to eat. And let me tell you, when she teaches you, you teach somebody else. Because this is how we have to do it. We have to, you help me, then you go and you help somebody else. Do not keep it to yourself. Okay? So that was a very good question.
Okay. I have a next one. You spoke about amputation. If you are balancing, or you have in terms of you keeping your sugar level at a moderate rate, will it still go to amputation?
Well, there are many factors that would cause amputation. One would be your sugar being out of control. That's the number one. Another factor would be you getting to me late. Because whether you're diabetic or not, if you have a laceration or a cut and you don't treat it correctly, which means getting it dressed daily or every other day, or even sometimes taking antibiotic, then if you reach to me late, then that can actually cause you to go to amputation. But let me tell you, once you have your sugar under control, the chances of you heading to an amputation would be decreased significantly. Because when your blood level sugars are high, what happens? Your fighting body, that army within your body, the sugar makes it lazy. So it doesn't fight off any infection. But once you have your sugar well controlled and balanced, then it gives you a really good fighting chance to overcome that infection and then to have your wound healing. Also, high blood sugar, when you get a cut, you go through some phases. You go from the bleeding phase right up to the healing stage. Now, when you are diabetic and the blood sugar is high, it doesn't move. That progression from you getting cut and bleeding and going to healing, it is slowed down significantly. And that's all because the sugar is high. So once you have your sugar control, you're moving from the bleeding stage to the scab stage, happens quickly and seamlessly, and then you would not get an infection. So yes, having your sugar, I won't say moderately, but ideally controlled, would decrease your chances significantly of going to an amputation.
Yes, doctor. I believe that it calls for early education. Because when parents have their children, they love to see their children eat. So the children get used to the plates filled, and then they'll come, eat up. If you don't eat this, I'll do you this one. So something has to be done right there at the beginning when parents start to have children, some kind of education to teach the parents how to feed the children, and I think that would help so that even as they get bigger, and another thing, parents like to see their children fat. You see? Yes, right, they like to see that, see my little girl, her butt and her legs and so forth. They love to see those things. They are not educated, they don't know what will happen way down the road, and they just feed the children. Okay, my question now, you spoke about since the pandemic, you see a lot of patients who have diabetes. Now, I want to ask you, do you think it is fear that caused these persons to go down diabetes? Fear? Can fear bring on this kind of disease? Because they are all right, but now the pandemic is there, and all different kinds of stories about the pandemic, and a fear enters them. Do you think that is the reason? That's one of the reasons for them, going down with this disease? Fear or worry or something, which is the same fear. Do you think that?
Honestly, even before the pandemic, persons were afraid. It has gotten worse during the pandemic because I've heard patients say that they don't want to come out because they don't want to catch, the virus. So in my opinion, I have to be honest, I think probably that's an excuse that they just are afraid to go to the doctor and they're looking for a reason not to visit the doctor. Yes, fear drives a lot of things, and fear, yes, is keeping away many persons from the doctors. That is why we are here in forums like these. I'm the president of the St. Kitts Nevis Medical and Dental Association, and we are on TV some Monday nights, giving different types of lectures. We actually go to the schools, and we do give lectures as well, so that we don't have children being afraid of visiting doctors. What I see, and I don't like at all, parents telling their children, if you don't behave, I'm going to take you to the doctor so you can get an injection. So right there and then, we are instilling fear, and we are relating the doctor to some type of something that is bad. So now that child now grows up thinking that the doctor is a monster, as Dr. Christmas was saying. Yes, I do admit the fear is there. But I normally tell my patients, because eventually they're going to show up, Eventually they will show up, and they will still have the fear, but they will be at a bad state. So I normally said to my patients, come to me early with the fear. Come to me very early with you being afraid. I don't mind you come to me when it's just a little cut. And he said, Dr. Woodley, I'm so afraid, but I am here. Okay, we'll work through it. But don't come to me when the foot is black. So you have two things going against you. The foot is black and you're afraid. No matter which one, you're going to be afraid, but come early still. Okay, so yes, fear is there. In terms of fear causing the disease, no, I don't think the fear is causing the disease, anxiety causing the disease. The disease was there even before, all of this anxiety. But I just need persons to come out. See your doctor at least once per year. Then he or she will determine if you need to see them after and how many times after you should visit the doctor. That is what we want to, if you get anything from us here tonight, is to visit your doctor. Your doctor should be your friend. People know the name of the butcher and who would sell, the cabbage down the road. But when you ask somebody, who's your doctor? Boy, I used to go to, man, he lived down the road, he lived in a greenhouse. But you would know the name of the person who's selling the clothes and the person who's selling the barbecue chicken down the road, but you would not know the name of your doctor. So you need to have a relationship with your doctor, okay? And some persons may think that, the doctor is making money off of me. Trust me, we don't make any money. Ask Dr. Morton. We don't make it. So just go and visit your doctor, have a discussion. We have the health centers. If you don't want to see a private doctor, they have the health centers. We have so many health centers around the islands. And they're all furnished with doctors. Go and visit them. Have a chat with your doctor.
Okay, well, I was just going to take the opportunity to speak a bit about some things with regards to incidence and the possibility of prevention. Since we're talking about diabetes, I think some people would probably be worried, if you're not diabetic, how could I prevent myself from becoming diabetic? Okay, so the disease itself, basically, your body is losing the ability to control your blood sugar levels. To put it simply, many different scientists, doctors, those people, over many years, they were able to realize that in a normal functioning human being, you're supposed to have a blood sugar between a specific range. We usually say about 65 to about 130 or so, but your blood sugar is always supposed to be within that range. Your brain only works on sugar, so you need to have a blood sugar above the 65 level, otherwise you're going to feel woozy, you're going to feel dizzy, you're not going to be able to concentrate, etc. But at the same time, they realize when your blood sugar is higher than the 130, and it's consistently so, as Dr. Woodley is saying, it causes damage to a lot of different parts of the body, because those sugar molecules, they start to get incorporated into all kinds of places where they shouldn't be. They first start to get incorporated into your nerves. It causes nervous damage, so you can't, normally it's the smaller nerves they attack first, so you can't feel like how you used to feel, especially in the tips of your toes and the tips of your fingers, and then the problem starts to ascend. It causes problems with your blood vessels. Some people actually characterize diabetes as a circulatory disease since it causes so much damage to your blood vessels. But what that means is that all of the places in your body that have these networks of these small blood vessels, those places are prone to getting damaged. That would be like your kidneys, your eyes, different parts of the brain. They're prone to get damaged because it's damaging those blood vessels. That is why we would always tell you, check your eyes at least once a year, at least do a blood test to check to see how your, blood and urine, to check to see how your kidney is doing at least once a year. And of course, we try to do some education for people to be able to identify some of the early signs of a stroke if it's happening in someone, etc. And the other thing is that you could also be a little bit more susceptible to getting a heart attack. And when she mentioned that your wounds don't heal, your immune system is not functioning 100% properly. As she said, the white blood cells, when the sugar gets incorporated into those, they get lazy. They don't fight as strongly as they're supposed to. They don't mount a response as quickly as they're supposed to. And they're just inefficient with regards to clearing your body of invasive organisms when it used to be very good at doing that. So from the time they realized this pattern, what they realized is that when you have diabetes, the body has lost the ability to keep your blood sugar in that normal range. Now, in an unaffected person that does not have diabetes, you have lots of internal mechanisms working in your body to try to keep your blood sugar in that range. When it's too low, it tells you that you should eat something and you start to feel hungry. When it's too high, your body has all these hormones that get released to try to absorb the sugar. The insulin is released to try to absorb the sugar, to keep it outside of the bloodstream and put it in your cells for later use, etc., etc. Now, if it's type 2 diabetes we're talking about, that's the more common one here. After years upon years of abuse of that same last system which I mentioned, so you're always overeating, you're always eating bad things. So your body's blood sugar is always acutely going up. If anybody eats anything sweet, no matter how healthy you are, your blood sugar is going to go up, but your body is then going to bring it back to the normal level when the insulin acts. But after years upon years of eating these really big meals, or these really starchy meals, or these just like lots of sugar, lots of unhealthy things.
It can be jam.
I love them. After doing
And the sugar cake.
After doing it for years and years, the cells in your body, they start to not be so sensitive to the insulin anymore. So what your body starts to do is, your pancreas, which makes the insulin, starts to release more and more because it realizes that your cells aren't responding and it's not decreasing the blood sugar like it should. So let's release a little bit more insulin so that your body could respond more. And eventually it's going to reach its limit. It's making as much insulin as it can. And still your cells all over your body, all these cells, they're so insensitive to the insulin that it's just not absorbing the glucose anymore. And that's when your sugars now, they're always elevated. And that's where you get the problems with the diabetes developing. So when you reach that point, when the body reaches the point in which every cell in your body, or all the cells, they're not picking up glucose like it should, that's a problem that we diagnose as type 2 diabetes. That's a problem that you're going to have, unfortunately, once it happens, you have it for the rest of your life. It's not reversible. It's not something for us to say, you're diabetic, your body's lost this ability, but we have this specific thing that could make every single cell in your body all of a sudden start to pick up sugar like before. It doesn't happen. All that we can do when it reaches that point is we can either give you certain medications such that they slow down the rate at which your body absorbs the sugar. That's like the same sugar tablets, like the metformin, the glyburide, the Dianyl, has a lot of different names. But we have all these different they have different mechanisms of action. But all these mechanisms, all of these medications, their goal is they're trying to slow down your gut so that you don't absorb the sugar as quickly. And once that happens, then you don't, it just assists overall with keeping your blood sugar regulated. But for some people, that medication might not be enough, and that's when we have to top it up and give you the insulin. And a lot of people run from insulin because it's human nature to not want to get dug by anything, because that's why you have all these different nerves in your body that makes getting dug by something hurt. You're supposed to avoid getting pricks. It's something that's inside your nature, because if you get pricked by something, you get cut. And if you get cut, it could cause you harm. So you're internally wired to not like to get stuck. But the problem is that until we develop a better system, when you become diabetic, we have to stick your finger to check the sugar, and then we have to inject you with the insulin again. So it's a lot of sticks to get accustomed to, unfortunately. And I know because of the burden of that, people don't like the insulin thing, and they try to see as long as possible how they could stay on the tablets pad. But if it reaches the point in which the tablets are not working like they should, and you need to get the insulin, please heed the advice of the medical persons that are speaking to you, and please take the insulin like you should. The insulin is the best thing. It was a wonderful invention when human beings invented it, you know. There was a scene with some photographs. You might be able to Google it and find it. Before we had the medication, when you had diabetes, you just used to die. especially as a child, when you have, well, there's another type of diabetes called type 1 diabetes. That's when the pancreas itself is damaged and you're not making any insulin at all. Those people, they need insulin all the time. But when you have type 2, sometimes you need insulin, sometimes you don't. Now, when people first, it was a difficult process. When they first invented insulin, they went on a children's ward, and all these children with type 1 diabetes, when your body doesn't have these medications available, all that your body could do is try to make you pass as much urine as possible to try to get the sugar out of your body from the urine. You become wasted, you become very, very ill, and you look like a skeleton in no period of time, and that is how the children used to die from that. And when they first were able to get insulin, and they went on the children's ward, and they're going through and they're injecting every different child with the insulin, you see in a limb person, you see them spring up, and you see in a limb person and spring up, and people took pictures because it was revolutionary. So this revolutionary invention that people went through all this trouble to make, you're refusing it, and you're not taking it. Just think that without it, it causes a lot of problems. So the thing that you have to focus on as much as you can, well, first of all, look at your family history. Unfortunately, everybody isn't wired the same. If you have a family history of diabetes, what that means is that the internal mechanisms in your body, they put you at a little disadvantage, and it's easier for them to start to give problems. So if you know that your mother and your father were diabetic, you have to be a little bit more careful, check up a little earlier, and if you're diagnosed with a diabetes, it's not the end of the world. We can still manage it. It's not the end of the world, but it's going to become an integral part of you. You have to accept it. You have to tell yourself every day it's a part of you, and you have to do what you're supposed to do with every single thing that you eat and every single thing that you do. Remember that you're diabetic, and try your hardest to stay healthy as possible. But check to see if you have a family history of it. The other thing is watch what you're eating. The starches are dangerous. The quick burning starches are dangerous. Just to explain that a little bit, I don't know if this is going to help, but just explain it a little bit. Starches don't taste sweet, but starches are glucose. They're sugar. The same sugar in a spoon when you have a spoon of brown sugar. Starches are sugar, but they are branched up and they're in these long chains. So when your tongue tastes it, it's not going to taste sweet because it hasn't been broken up yet. But the saliva in your mouth is actually an enzyme called salivary amylase. That enzyme breaks up the starch nearly immediately and turns it into basically sugar's cousin. And then by the time it reaches to your stomach, a little bit more, well, a little bit further than that, but a little bit more of something acts on it, and it turns into a ball of glucose that you just ate. So when you're eating the fast-burning starches, that's your white bread, your white potato, your white corn products, all the processed foods, everything. If you look on the package and you see, what you call it? No, the corn syrup, something? High fructose corn syrup, yes. When you look on something and you see high fructose corn syrup, so the corn products, pasta, the white pasta, the normal pasta, and as she said, the chicken and all the potato, when I say white potato, all the potato products, because remember potato is used to make a lot of things. Potato chips, chips as in the chips as in the French fries, mashed potato, all of these are, just think of them as sugar. They are sugar. They don't taste sweet, but they are sugar. In your body, when you eat them, in a few minutes' time, your body turns them into sugar. As Dr. Woodley was telling me, they call that the glycemic index. That's an index in which people use to find out how quickly something that's starchy breaks down into sugar. Now, if you've been eating those foods a lot, and you can't help what your parents feed you, so you have to hope that you don't have a childhood that's racked with eating a lot of these. When you're an adult, you can take control of your own life and you can try to make healthy decisions. But if you're eating these fast-burning starches and you're always spiking your blood sugar and forcing your pancreas to spit out lots of insulin, that's where the problem comes. Now, the substitution would help. So for everything, there is a substitute. Instead of the white bread, there's the wheat bread. The wheat bread, it has the fiber in it, and the good thing with fiber fiber makes your gut move fast. Fiber, your body doesn't, your fiber isn't really, quote unquote, a nutrient in your body. So when you eat a lot of fiber, your gut moves fast. But of course, if your gut is moving fast, then your body doesn't have as much time to absorb everything. So that's where the fiber comes in.
And Dr. Moses, let me stick a pin here. We don't want the wheat bread just like they just throw a little color of something brown to make it look. Get the real wheat bread. They have bread with the real grains in it. So you have to be very careful when you're buying this type of bread, because sadly, some persons make wheat bread and it's not really wheat bread. You understand? So it's just a little coloring, it almost seems like, and it's basically you eating, white bread that is just colored. So when you go to the supermarket, take time out and read properly. Get those bread that have the grains in it. There's a bread that has so many, I think 16 grains.
Ezekiel bread?
Yeah, so it's just... So it's just that you're just eating, but these are the things that you need to do. So take time, read your content for the high fructose. A friend, we just go to the supermarket and we just take things off the shelf. My daughter don't like to go with me because she says, I'm reading too much. I'm wasting too much time in the supermarket. But you have to read and know what you're putting in you. So when you go looking for your wheat bread, and you have bakers around who make really good wheat bread, so you have to look for those persons.
Yeah, so yes, for the white bread, substituted with wheat bread, limit the amount of bread that you're eating as well. It can be that you're eating like a whole wheat bread. Anyway, so with the bread, substitute the white bread for the wheat bread. For the white potato, try to use some kind of other ground provision. The other ground provision is actually pretty good. Even the sweet potato is good. Sweet potato tastes sweet, it has a little bit of glucose, but everything else in it is a lot of fiber. And if you had to look at a microscope, it's the same sugar, but it's a lot of bonds, and basically it's going to take long for your enzymes to break it down. And it also makes your gut move very quickly. So I think the only bad provision, if you have to think about it, is really the white potato. I don't think it's really a provision. It just grows in the ground like them. Yeah. So people call it it's not really a provision. Those other provisions, the one that tastes a little worse, those provisions, those break down much more slowly and they're better for you. It's still starch, so you have to be careful with the portions, but there's that. For the noodles, I know they have these noodles that they make from greens, some kind of legume pasta thing. And unfortunately, with pasta, I would have to tell you, just don't buy it. As in, if you're really trying, if you have diabetes already and you're trying to be conscious, nobody makes food on the road with anything except the white pasta. The brown pasta, it expires fast, it's expensive, and it takes a lot longer to cook. They do not waste money on it. So if you want to enjoy pasta, that's something you're going to have to make on your own. Or if you're going to be buying it, I'm hoping that you're not diabetic and you limit how often you buy something like pasta. For the corn, okra is actually very good. If you had to look at a map and you had to look at disease incidence, and you had to look, because Africa right in the middle, you'd find that one of the only diseases in which you find that Africa has a lower incidence of is the diabetes. And when I asked a question about it, it's because, first of all, they don't overeat. They have the other problem. In some instances, not all of them, in some instances, some of the states, they're wealthy. But apart from that, it's what they're eating. They eat a lot of ground provisions, and they eat a lot of okra with their meal. Okra... It's the sliminess of the okra, it slows down your gut the same way, and it kind of blocks sugar from being able to be absorbed. So it's nearly like a natural sugar tablet, but it's not as efficacious and stuff. But it assists with keeping your blood sugars controlled. So the corn, a limited amount of the corn with the okra is better than just having the corn alone. The other corn products, I don't know what to say, because they're really easy to spike your blood. They're probably some of the worst offenders.
While you're thinking, also, what I would like to say, as a diabetic, your gut normally slows down. So diabetics, they are normally they can get constipated because they're not getting the food from the mouth to the anus as quickly as possible. So the foods like the pasta, these are things that make you constipated. And that's another problem that we are seeing coming in right now, constipation, okay? Because we're not eating a lot of fiber. So as a diabetic, because your gut, because of the nature of the disease, it makes you constipated, you don't go off as frequently as you should. That is why you need to incorporate all of these fiber as well, not only to keep the sugar levels down, but it also actually helps you to keep your gut clean by helping you to go to the bathroom frequently. So the pastas and the white bread, these are things that make you constipated, and that's what we live on. And constipation is it's a serious problem. I had to take somebody to the operating room to open them up so that I can remove the feces from the intestine. I mean, what have we become? That you're not, and that lady was diabetic, eating the pastas, eating the white bread, constipated, cannot get the stool out. So I had to do a surgery on her to get her stool out. That's how bad it is.
Yes, so the other things that could assist, the plate thing was very important, and that's something that you have to take seriously. I find in St. Kitts, I don't know if it's culture, I think it's more so cultural, but as she was mentioning, we actually eat very badly here. And if you go to some other countries where people eat a lot better than here, some of the European, I mean, you have to be careful because white people and black people are different, so what works for some might not work for all. But some of those countries, and even in some other places, like even a simple place like India, which is, it's very vegetarian, you find that they have little tips and tricks that they use to increase the amount of vegetable that they consume. And when you look at it, the overall picture is that it's a healthier plate overall that they're eating. The other thing that could help, which I kind of realized, is they have certain things like cinnamon, which, when I say cinnamon, I don't mean the cinnamon with sugar in it that you add to anything. I mean like the cinnamon, the stick or the bush, like the actual cinnamon. Cinnamon, it reduces inflammation, it lowers your cholesterol, and it helps to manage your blood sugar. So it has lots of pluses. A cinnamon tea, as in take two of the bush and scrape some of the, well, scrape, boil or go? Sorry.
Grate.
I don't use it.
Grate.
The stick, you grate it? Okay, so you grate some of the stick and you boil it. A lot of the bush teas are good. Some of them could cause some liver problems, but the bulk of the bush teas are good. The cinnamon tea is good. The turmeric tea is good. I'm not really that good with bush stuff, you know. I'm trying to think. Just give me a second. I'll remember some. Ginger is good. Okay, rosemary. Garlic is good for your heart as well. So yes, garlic.
And for the pressure as well, it keeps the pressure down. Mm-hmm.
Lemongrass. What's lemongrass for? I'm trying. I have learned these at a point in time. I'm coming. Where is this from? Fever. Oh, for fever. Oh, okay. Well, so you see, y'all know it. That's good. Y'all know it. That's good.
It's very interactive.
Pass on the knowledge to the younger people, so that they could know about the different teas and their usage. I don't believe in using teas to substitute for medication, but they could assist with keeping you better and healthier overall. As in, don't take, like, I know breadfruit bush could lower the pressure a little bit. Don't bother say because you're boiling breadfruit bush, you're not taking the pressure medication. It's not a substitution. It's something that you could use to use it to assist with the overall blood pressure management. Pardon? Green pepper. Yeah, that has a bunch of uses. Yeah. We actually could use it for the same thing. Remember when Dr. Woodley was mentioning with your healing that you're trying to get from one stage to another. Green pepper actually, if used properly, so have a nurse or a medical doctor or somebody that's trained with it. If you actually, it's great. If you grate it, you could incorporate it into some of the wounds that are having difficulty healing to see if it could assist it in moving from one stage of healing to another. So it has that use. It has a bunch of other uses as well. So, yes. Oh.
Doctor, most of what I had to ask you answered. I was asking about the diabetes that runs through your family. You answered that one. But there is a high, I've been hearing that children are diabetics. And you mentioned probably that the pancreas that is not working properly. But do you think that is the real reason why we're having so many children being diabetic? And the diet, what children are eating, sometimes they tell you, well, when they don't eat the sweet, they drink a lot of water. And apart from that, the diet, the sweet, and they say, oh, let the children eat because they're active, they're running up and down, and so they burn up the calories or burn up the, I don't know how effective that is in terms of, but the idea that a lot of children are being diabetic now is a concern. I had a question for the dentist, because in terms of teeth, what happens when you're getting a wisdom teeth, you have so many problems? And I know my granddaughter had the back of the gum surgery on it, and then take out the tooth because something ain't right behind here. I know when I was getting my wisdom teeth, I don't know if people still get wisdom teeth. They do?
Yes, they do.
It was problematic for me. A lot of pain, so I don't know if the development of, if she don't have enough space or she didn't have all of that in order to accommodate the wisdom tooth, but it really knocked her off and she had to have surgery and all of that. Another thing, children just born with some chalky teeth, or when they're growing up, they have these chalky teeth, and you find that the children lose their teeth very early, and then in the second batch of teeth, the same teeth come. Is it a lack of, they don't get enough milk or calcium? Is there a deficiency why they have problems with the development of strong bones, strong teeth?
Okay, with the kids, the children, St. Kitts actually is known as one of, the islands with the fattest people. In the world. I was shocked. I was shocked when I read that, but then when I was walking around and I began looking at our people, and then I realized, well, hey, we are on the big side for true. In the world, we are ranked very high, almost could be. Now, what you're saying about the kids, it is so true. Children are consuming large amounts of sugary products. The box juices, the Capri, oh boy, I hope. The box juices, these things, half of it basically is sugar and just some coloring. We give our children a lot of the chocolates, a lot of the processed food, the cheesecake, the chocolate cake. So our children are indeed consuming much more sugars than I think we were consuming when we were younger than them. As Dr. Morton said, the pancreas is working non-stop. It's going to burn out. It's going to get tired. It's going to stop. That is why children, by the time they're 16, 17, they ended up not even with type 1 diabetes that you normally see in children, but type 2 diabetes they're ending up with, that now their cells are now being resistant to the uptake of this sugar. So we have to now train our children how to eat. We have to take them off the juices, get them on more water. And it's a misconception that children are active and would burn it off. Children are not so active like before. The other day I went back to my home country, my town, and what was surprising for me, when I was growing up in the streets, you would see hopscotch boxes. And, when you finish a game, 6 o'clock in the evening, you want rain come because, you're going back the following day to continue the game. I was walking through Sandy Point, and you're not seeing that. In fact, you're not seeing children outside. I used to play my Mississippi. And, when that game over, you were on broad ease. So, when you come back tomorrow, you want to continue. So children in reality, they're not using up the sugars that they are using. They're on the inside on the PS4, they're playing all type of games, they're on the phone, they're on YouTube. So activity has gone down, but the sugar consumption has gone up. So what we are going to get? Diabetic children. And that too is on the rise. And what we have to realize, diabetes is linked to kidney failure. And let me tell you, we don't have enough dialysis machine for all the kidney problems we're having. When you have kidney failure, you should go on the machine about 3 times a week. But because it is so many persons right now, sometimes that cannot happen.
And it's expensive.
And it is expensive. It is expensive. So prevention, I mean, is so much better than the cure. I mean, it is very cliche. We hear it over and over, but we have to practice it. And I'll be honest, I think our generation and the one before us in terms of eating, I don't know how much we can better it, but I think we need to focus on the young ones, which I don't see us doing, but we need to teach them how to eat. You don't have to always have sugar in your tea. The peanut butters, these are sweet things. And then we're going to peanut butter and jelly. From since when we're eating like that, we don't eat like that. We're giving our children peanut butter and jelly for lunch. So the problem, it actually lies with us. And we have to change. And I'm saying, if you don't know how, because we're not going to know everything. We have nutritionists on island. There is the famous Google, you can Google. And if you're not sure, you just call up the doctor. I'm sure most of you have your doctors on WhatsApp, because a lot of them are already texting me here. And they ask me, Dr. Woodley, what to do? And, you know, when we get time, we would answer. But just talk to your doctor. Doc, how can I change my eating pattern? You know? So we need to talk with our doctors. We need to get our children off of the sugars, the chocolate, the Skittles. What I'm not seeing so much of, I don't know, is a lot of vendors now by schools. Don't know if because of COVID. I'm not, and that, I mean, I know everybody has to make a living, but if you're going to be a vendor, sell healthy stuff. The lot of chocolates and those things. I know a certain school has prevented vendors from being outside. They said, no, we can't have you on the outside. Okay?
One of the realities that we must look at is that it is said that sugars are more addictive than cocaine. And we find, we complain and say the children are eating a lot of sugars. But the reality is that they're hooked on sugars, you know. They can't just stop. One of the popular craze around here right now is caramel popcorn. Caramel popcorn, they're sweet. And you think that they're sweet? Some vendors actually add condensed milk to the caramel popcorn. They add condensed milk to corn curls. They add condensed milk to everything. So that is almost like double and triple sugar that you're dealing with. So these are the reasons why we have children coming down with diabetes. I mean, some of them, they don't eat any breakfast at mornings, and they go to school and the first thing they consume is these sweet stuff. And every opportunity they get, they would consume these things. And apart from the diabetes, they develop cavities because of these things. They're eating sweets and they're not brushing their teeth. So they wake up in the morning, they don't brush, and they go to school, they buy the snacks, they buy gummies, they buy caramel popcorn with condensed milk. And all of that stays on their teeth all day. And every opportunity they get, they would go and buy them again. So these are reasons why we have so many young persons affected by dental caries, why they have so many problems. But the thing is, we as adults, you have to help these children, because sometimes they don't know how to make better choices. Adults sometimes pack these children bags with all of these sweet candies. We blame the children sometimes when they eat these things, but they don't know any better because this is what they're getting at home. Their parents are packing their bags with all sorts of simple sweets. I mean, you go to the supermarket on the weekend and you buy biscuit, you buy wafers, you buy Cheetos, you buy all of these snacks. They don't buy fruits. The children need to use fruits also. They're eating all of these sweets and they don't drink water. They wash down their caramel conkers and condensed milk with a sweet juice also, with a soda. So it's like at the end of the day, they can't have good teeth when they have these bad practices. To address the question that Sister Small asks about with young children with cavities, I mean, there's one thing that is called baby bottle caries. And baby bottle caries starts because some mothers, they breastfeed at night and they don't clean the child's mouth. So you find some of these children, they're trained where when they're hungry, they just go on the breast and they suck. And they fall asleep with that milk in their mouth. And this happens day in, day out, night after night. So the milk, when it breaks down, it starts dissolving the enamel on the teeth. And eventually these children develop cavities. Apart from the milk, some parents, they have this tendency of chucking a bottle of bush tea in the child's mouth before they go to sleep at night. They might say, well, this child don't sleep at night time, so let me make some soursop bush with a lot of sugar in it, and they chuck that in the child's mouth. And for them, that's the best thing because the child go to sleep in a short space of time. But then the problem that is created is that this child develops cavities. And the reality is that many children, they don't eat properly, they don't sleep properly because they have toothache. They're always fussy, they're always grumpy, and you feel like they just want to be miserable, but they can't sleep properly because they can't function properly because of a toothache. And we take it for granted sometimes. Some parents, they don't check their children's mouth, so they don't know what's happening. So it's very important that the brushing is very important. Children, they learn from mimicking adults also. And if you as an adult, you're not brushing your teeth, they're not seeing you brushing your teeth, you can't tell them to go and brush their teeth. They would go in the bathroom and play around, turn on the water, and then they come back out. So you need, as adults, you need to allow the children to see you doing these healthy habits. Brushing your teeth after you eat every time. That's very important. Every time you eat, you dirty up your teeth. And the mechanical action of the toothbrush, it takes the food off of the teeth. So it's important that you brush your teeth after you eat every time. For some persons, that means that you might be brushing your teeth 6 to 8 times or even 10 times a day, because some persons, every tick of the clock, they're eating. And you just have to remember to brush your teeth after you eat every time. Also, the question about the wisdom teeth eruption. Your teeth erupts on what is called a dental arc. And for some persons, they might have a small arc with big teeth. So you find when your teeth erupts, after a time, sometimes you don't have enough space on that arc for the teeth to fit. So because of that, persons end up with problems with their wisdom teeth. Wisdom teeth in particular, sometimes they don't come up straight as they're supposed to. Some wisdom teeth, they come up crooked, some of them come up laying down. So in cases like those, you will have to do surgical extraction to remove those wisdom teeth. Because once they start erupting in that way, there is nothing that could be done to straighten them up. So the only solution in cases like that is to have extractions done. And it's important that you do extractions on these wisdom teeth that are going horizontally. Because just like how they would erupt vertically, what happens is that they continue to push on the teeth in front of them. So over time, what could happen is that wisdom tooth erupting can push into the roots, sometimes into the crown of the second molar and create a cavity. So in the end, you end up losing not just the wisdom tooth, but you lose the second molar also. So it's very important that attention be paid to wisdom teeth when they're erupting, because they don't always erupt in the correct position. They don't always erupt how they're supposed to. So it's important that you pay attention to them. Right.
There's some people cannot take insulin. What caused that? That's the first question. They may get sick or something. The second one, what could help to prevent stroke?
Go ahead.
The third one, for Dr. Christmas, the first one, insulin, was for Dr. Morton, and the stroke for Dr. Woodley.
Okay.
What prevent? Dr. Christmas, when one have a headache and it's so bad, sorry, not a headache, a toothache, and it's so bad and it goes to your brains, what is that could help damage your brain? Because when you have a toothache and it's so hot, so bad, so could you all explain? Thank you.
Okay. Okay. With regards to the question about insulin making people sick, I think there's a little misconception with that. When we put someone on insulin, usually when we start you on the insulin, you're admitted to hospital for either 1 or 2 days. We check your blood sugar on a regular basis, and we determine the amount of insulin that you would need. This is done with the hospital diet, in which we are going to give you a certain amount of calories, usually based on either your specific weight or just your general size. We're giving you X amount of this, X amount of that, etc. What happens is that sometimes when people leave the hospital setting, one of two things happen. Well, one of three. Either they eat like normal, or they're supposed to, or if they end up eating a lot more and they end up moving around a lot less, then the insulin wouldn't be adequate, and that's when we're going to have to make some adjustments afterwards. The other issue is, if you're not eating on time and you take the insulin, of course it's going to make you feel sick, because it's going to drop your blood sugar well below the 60s threshold. And from the time that happens, your brain only works on glucose. So when the sugar dips too low, you're going to start to get confusion, headaches, ill feeling. The whole works is going to happen. So it's not really in most cases that I know of, it's not really the insulin that makes you sick. It's that it's either the insulin was taken without eating, or maybe you're taking a little bit too much insulin. You wouldn't have an insulin allergy. Insulin is in your body. So if you had an insulin allergy, you'd get it when you're a baby. I've never heard of it, actually. But in terms of any other way in which insulin could make you sick, I'm thinking very hard. Is another way?
Sometimes they add to stabilize
all the chemicals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes to stabilize the insulin itself, they would add other components, other chemicals, and sometimes you are allergic not to the insulin, but the other components. So the insulin would be the active ingredient, but sometimes they may add other things, so that it doesn't break down, or it can withstand the heat or the cold, and the person is actually allergic to the other components and not the insulin. So I would prefer patients not just to come off, but go and visit your doctor and let him know, look, I had a particular reaction to the insulin, And you have different types too, different types of insulin. So this one may not work for you. So then the doctor may say to you, okay, let's try something else and see what happens. It can just be the other components, the other ingredients in that one that is causing you the problem. So sometimes just a change alone can actually be, the solution. So just don't come off like that.
And even with that, even with the sugar tablets, the metformin, it's in the same thing. The different brands, the same thing like Dr. Woodley mentioned, the different brands have different additives. And I don't know about here, but I know when I was in Jamaica, they had these 2 brands of metformin, and one of them used to cause some severe diarrhea, but it was the cheaper one. And then we would have to tell people, well, if you get that reaction, you're going to have to use the more expensive one. And usually they wouldn't get diarrhea with just something with the makeup of it. I don't know how they made it cheaper, but something that was done. Whatever substitution they used, for some people you had that reaction. The thing with the insulin is that if you're having the allergy to the main insulin that we tend to use is a Novolin 70/30 insulin. The sad part is that if you have an allergy to that, the other insulins, which are the ones that the type 1 diabetics kind of use a little bit more, they're very expensive. Like, they're very expensive. They're life-changing expensive. Need second job expensive. So if it could be avoided, then we try to see how we could avoid it. But if it can't, then...
Okay.
The stroke. As it relates to stroke, well, I'm a surgeon, so it's been a while since I would have done the stroke topic. But what I can recall from medical school, the stroke, just what it basically means is that there is a decrease in blood flow to the brain, or just a total block of the blood flow to the brain. So in the medical term, they would call it a cerebral vascular accident, but in the layman terms, we say a stroke. So which means no blood is going up to your brain. So you just block out. Now, what can cause that? There are many causes. For example, persons who may have high cholesterol, and this high cholesterol going through the blood vessels, because you have 2 major blood vessels going up in your neck to your brain. And if you have so much high cholesterol, the fatty stuff in the blood vessels, that can actually cause that to clog. And then when the blood supply shuts off, then you can get a stroke. Now, it depends on which side is blocked. You can have manifestations like, for example, your right side going, numb, or you can't use it. It depends on how extensive it is. It may just take your face. That is why sometimes as a doctor, we would ask you, did you see any twisting of your face? Did you begin to dribble? Everybody said when you were smiling, it looks crooked. And it's amazing, we always try to explain things away and say, oh, doctor, yeah, my smile kind of crooked. But then, somebody would say, no, it looked even worse, and things like that. So, or you may get a stroke where it just kills a huge part of the brain. Because remember, when the blood is cut off from a particular part of your brain, it gets no oxygen, it gets no nutrients. So that part of the brain dies, turns black, necrotic, decays, and dies. So if that part of the brain was responsible for walking, then you would not be able to walk, especially if it affects one side. If that part of the brain was responsible for you, it affects a part of your face, then that face for you would just go flaccid, go numb. It becomes paralyzed, and that is where you will get the person dribbling. That is where you won't be able to smile properly. You won't be able to put your teeth together properly. Okay? You won't be able to swallow, as Dr. Morton is saying as well. So the stroke, so one of the causes can be, what you may call it, the high cholesterol in your level. Another sign that it may be happening to you, somebody may be walking normal all the time, and then you begin to see them drag his or her foot. Those are early signs that the blood vessel is clogging bit by bit, and the amount of blood going to the brain is decreasing bit by bit, so it's affecting that part of the brain that is needed for walking. I can recall that my grandfather, he had a stroke, And about 2 weeks before, we saw him, but we didn't know anything. I remember my mother saying, but, you know, Papa, why are you dragging your foot like that? And then his excuse was, man, you know, I'm tired, I'm working hard, so that's what's happening. And 2 weeks after, he had a stroke, and he was dead on the left side. He could not move anything at all on the left side. So one of the causes can be high cholesterol. Another cause can be you throw a blood clot. Persons, for example, who would have had heart surgery and they have things within the heart to help the heart beat properly, like pacers, a heart pacer, or they may have one of the valves replaced with something metallic. What can happen, because these are foreign bodies, they're not supposed to be there. What can happen is that as the blood passes through, it sticks to these foreign bodies and it forms clots. So then as the heart keeps beating up, it can throw one of these clots off, and we have the vessels come right here off the heart and go up to your brain. And if you throw a clot from the heart off, it can get stuck in those big arteries going to your brain and cut off the blood supply to your brain. Once the blood supply is cut off, then you know we are speaking about a stroke. So normally, and the stroke doesn't have to be one where you see these big symptoms like your left side is dead, or your face twitching, or your face twisting. Some persons may have just and we call those the mini strokes, where you get this transient, short, momentarily loss of consciousness, and then you catch back yourself. These are what we call mini strokes. So you may not block a big vessel going to the brain, you may block a smaller one that goes to the brain, and then you get that little dip feeling. Sometimes you're driving and you say, but wait. Or sometimes you actually pass halfway through and you didn't realize what happened. You know? So these things can happen. So a stroke is basically cutting off your blood supply to your brain. There are many causes. The number one cause can be, you know, high cholesterol, you throw in a blood clot, even trauma. We have this gentleman going around now, George Floyd, where that policeman had his foot on his neck. What he basically did is just shut off the blood supply to his head, and then he would get knocked out. And that, in a sense, is basically, you know, a stroke once there's no blood supply going to the brain. Okay, certain persons who smoke, you know, these are risk factors for you getting a stroke. Persons who smoke, persons who drink alcohol, that is. High blood pressure, that's the common cause as well too, high blood pressure. Because what the high blood pressure does, it damages the interior wall of these blood vessels going to your brain. Once the interior wall is damaged, as the blood passes through, it clots on the damaged area. And then these clots in itself get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they cause a stroke as well. Okay? So even when you just hold somebody, you just cut off the blood supply to the brain. So there are many causes for strokes, but what you need to look out for are the signs and symptoms, and do not take them for granted. We love to explain things away. We always find an excuse for something. I always say, let us rule out the most dangerous cause, and then we can go to the simple cause that would not be life-threatening. Okay? So that little time where you're driving and you get that, or you get that cloudy feeling, you can be having mini strokes and you don't know. And then you have the big presentations where you just go flopping down on the ground, so one side of your body is dead, you know, you become basically paralyzed on one side.
Clove. Nutmeg. Nutmeg.
Just an immediate blood thinner, that's all.
Okay, well, Dr. Morton has said to me it's an immediate
it's a blood thinner.
A blood thinner. Because that is the thinking that if your stroke is caused by a clot. But what if it's caused by a fat, we call it a fat embolus. So if it's caused by a clot, I mean, that should, I don't know how quickly it's going to get to the clot and thin it out, then...
so like aspirin then?
That is why persons would take, persons would take the aspirin, is a blood thinner. You take one aspirin a day, especially if you have risk factors,
Like the surgery.
like a heart surgery, high cholesterol, you're diabetic, you're a renal patient, then they would, do these things so that prevent you from having a stroke. Persons who are sedentary and not moving around, they can get blood clots, that can break off and go up more so to the lungs, but, in medicine, anything can happen. Okay?
At one point, at the hotel I was working, I saved a guest by cracking the nutmeg and putting it in his mouth. And when I called Dr. Claxton, she said he was just about getting a stroke. And that was very good because I learned that from my mother.
That is good. That's good. So it was a nutmeg you said you put under?
Yes.
Okay. So that is where we need to speak to our children. We don't talk to them, and we don't pass on these things.
Yes, speak about it. I'm sure everybody could tell that Dr. Woodley used to be a teacher. But
okay, so concerning the toothache, and you feel like there's some pain going all the way up into your head, this is what some persons experience sometimes. And I've seen patients who basically, they just do some crazy stuff once they have a toothache. I had one patient who at one point in time mentioned that she had put hot pepper sauce inside of a tooth that was hurting her because she had a toothache. So could you imagine on a normal basis, you're scared to eat hot pepper sauce, and you're going to take hot pepper sauce and put it inside of your mouth just to get rid of the pain. But some persons, they take a toothache for granted. I think there was a famous case that was broadcast a number of years ago. I think the young man's name was Diamante Driver or something like that. But it was a case in North Carolina where he had a dental abscess. It went untreated. And when he finally got some treatment, he ended up in the ICU. And he got this treatment late and he eventually died. And all of this was as a result of the infection not just staying here in the mouth, but it spread to his brain. Between this is called the magical triangle sometimes. There are no valves there, so you find once you have an infection in your mouth, it's easy for that infection to spread to your brain. So it's very important that persons pay attention to dental infections. We take it for granted sometimes. You might feel a pain and then it goes away. But over time, these infections, they can turn into abscess, and also they can turn into cysts, which are more like capsules of infections in the area where your teeth are. And these could travel to your brain and cause serious problems. A lot of persons, they have uncontrolled high blood pressure also because of dental pain. Some persons, they come to the dentist and you check their pressure and their pressure is sky high. And their pressure is high because they've been experienced toothache for a long time. So the pressure is not going down because of the pain, and the toothache is not going away. So it's very important that once you start getting these discomfort, you need to visit the dentist and get them sorted out. Toothache like to bother people on a long weekend. You see this long weekend that just passed? These are the times when you see a big crowd coming to the dentist. Because the tooth start bothering you Good Friday, it bother you the Saturday, it bother you Sunday, and it bother you they had pain yesterday. Yes. So it's very good that you visit the dentist before you end up with these kind of episodes, these problems. One of the things that we observe sometimes when persons come to the dentist, we ask them about medical conditions. And sometimes persons take it for granted. They might ask, well, why do you need to know if I'm diabetic? Why do you need to know if I have high blood pressure? Well, when you come to the dentist, depending on the type of illness that you're suffering from, we select a different type of medication. And some persons, they come to the dentist and you ask them if they're suffering from high blood pressure, and they say, man, my pressure good, just go ahead and do what you got to do. And when you go and check their pressure, you realize that their pressure is high. So if you come to the dentist to do a dental extraction and your pressure is high, there's only one thing that's going to happen. You're going to bleed much longer than a normal person would bleed. And sometimes you bleed so much. I mean, I heard of cases where persons just continue to, the blood just gushes out. And they don't know what to do. And what they do most of the times, if blood is just gushing up out of your mouth, you spit. And once you're spitting, you're knocking out that blood clot that helps to stop the bleeding every time. So you're basically stimulating the bleeding process by spitting and spitting. So it's very important for persons who are suffering from high blood pressure that you let your dentist know that you suffer from high blood pressure. Well, it's a normal practice for us to ask the patient to get their pressure checked. Sometimes we suspect and we get them. Some persons, they come to the dentist and they would tell you, well, the doctor gave them medication a couple of years ago and then they stopped taking it because the doctor said that the pressure was good. And sometimes you send them to check their pressure and you realize the only thing you could do is to send them to the hospital. And most times when they go to the hospital, they're held there for monitoring over a period of time because the pressure is so high. Sometimes you find the Rasta men, they come to the dentist also and they don't believe in taking medication. And you give them antibiotics, you give them painkillers, and they don't want to take it. Sometimes some of them, they're suffering from high blood pressure. And it's only when they come to the dentist and realize they can't get an extraction done because the pressure is high, that's when they choose to go and see their doctor. So it's very important that patients comply with taking their medication also, because it's almost like a chain reaction. One thing could lead to the next. You have a toothache and it could carry your pressure up. It could also cause your blood sugar levels to go out of control also. And some persons, they don't see it that way. They just feel like you come to the dentist to do something with their teeth and that's all I'm supposed to be concerned about. Persons also who suffer from heart issues, it's very important to say to the dentist when you go also that you have heart problems. Because if we treat you and these things are not disclosed, you can end up with problems where you have bacteria entering the bloodstream. It's something called endocarditis, where you can end up in the ICU unit just for treatment to get rid of this. So it's very important that you disclose to the dentist your medical history when you visit. Let us not take it for granted. Many persons feel like the dentist only deals with their teeth and that's all they're supposed to disclose. But it's very important that you disclose your medical history. If you're taking aspirin, blood thinners, these things, they also compound the blood clotting factors. You can bleed for a longer period of time because you're taking these blood thinners. So once you're on blood thinners, you're going to the dentist, you have to get extractions done. It's advisable that these medications be discontinued for a couple of days until the procedure is completed. So it's very, very important to disclose these conditions to the dentist.
Oh, okay. Well, it's getting kind of late, but I would just like to ask one. Oh, somebody has a question? Sorry.
Yeah. I would like to know what exactly does a lot of sugarcane eating does to you?
Sugar cane?
Yeah. And
yeah, I think so.
In response to Miss Woodley, you said that children are less active as they were back then. Is it that they are less active because they want to be or because that is how they are trained? Because as a very young age, you find parents just give them some sort of technology to what? Other than going outside, just stay in the house. and you just find they go with that tendency?
I agree with you. I think that's the way they are trained. Because back in the day, I didn't have all of these devices. And in fact, the kind of mother I have, I don't think she would have had me on the inside, just not doing anything. And you know, we had chores. Children these days, they don't have chores. I used to have to go out and, you know, clean yard, and then you have to wash dishes, and then my mother would tell you, go outside and play. We don't have parents doing that anymore, so I do agree with you. I think we are training our children that way because I do believe they are capable of playing. Because when they go to school, they do some playing, but once they get back home, we want to keep them quiet. Also, we have to realize to our streets aren't as safe as they were back then. We don't have that community approach now where, you know, your neighbor watching your child and that sort of things. So parents now are a bit afraid to have their children on the outside and prefer to have them on the inside. It's not that our homes are mansions that it's so big on the inside that could be running back and forth, or they don't have an inside tennis court or anything like that.
I think the big house has an effect. I think when the house is smaller, you're more likely to tell the child to go outside and play. And when the house is bigger, you have more things. Okay. So I think it follows a pattern.
Follows a pattern. But I do agree. I think we are actually training our kids wrong. We need to get them outside. I have children with low vitamin D and those things. That mean they're not getting sun. You know, we need to get them on the outside, get them playing. Look, we had Easter. How many children used to flying kites? Well, I hardly saw any children flying any kites. No, I mean, and I drove around on, you know, during the Good Friday and Easter, and it's one or two, just a few. But back in my time, I mean, that was an event. My father used to build kites, and it was 4 of us, and everybody had a kite. And we go up on the field, and all of our neighbors up there on the field, from morning until afternoon, mommy would have to come and look for us. So I do agree with you. I think it's the way we are training our children. We want them to have a better life than we did. And I put better in inverted commas, because keeping them on the inside, not exercising, that's not actually better. So we have to strike a balance. That's what we have to learn to do, strike a balance. Give them the technology because it's needed, and that's where we are heading. But at the same time, we have to get them, you know, physically active, etc. In terms of the sugar cane, well, I don't know if we have sugar cane still. I mean, you have to buy sugar cane. No, I have to buy sugar cane, which I don't like. So I don't buy sugar cane. That should be free.
For the sugar, I think the dentist, I was taught that sugar cane is good for your teeth because the fibers in it clean your teeth. Is that true?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So sugar cane has a plus.
But the sugar content.
Yeah, the sugar's in it. That's the issue.
That's the issue with it.
It's not really. It's not as it's still sugar. It's still sucrose you're consuming, and it's the easy one to break down. But it's not as concentrated as like eating a spoonful of sugar still. So and because I think when you're chewing it, there's so much work involved. I don't think you end up consuming that much sugar, as opposed to if you just like suck on a sweetie. That's how I'm processing it in my head.
And of course, moderation. I mean, back in the day, when you go up the cane range, you bring down a whole heap of sugar cane. You eat and you eat until your belly full. You get niggeritis too. That was bad. And by the time you finish eating, you don't even want no dinner, because that's it. So that would be a lot of sugar. So anything you do in excess, it's bad. So moderation. I mean, I see them sell these small little bags now. You can do 1 or 2 or 3, but you cannot eat like 2 and 3 bags. Because yes, the sugar content is there. It's what we call sucrose. It's almost a simple sugar. It's just 2 sugars together. You understand? And those break down easily. So it will spike your blood sugars very quickly. So you have to do it in moderation. Everything is moderation. We overdid it back then.
diabetic? Doesn't that make kidney injection?
Well, salt for anybody is bad, whether you're diabetic, whether you're, if you're a hypertensive patient, that's even worse. And for a normal person, having too much salt in the diet is bad. What the salt does, well, it's directly related to high blood pressure. High blood pressure is another thing that we are seeing very common during this pandemic, that persons are just so much concentrating on what is happening now that they're forgetting these things. Of course, if you're diabetic, if the high blood salt and the pressure increases, you run the risk of all these other problems, like the number one problem being kidney failure. Hypertension, it's called, the silent killer, because your blood pressure goes up, and sometimes you don't realize until you get the stroke, which we were speaking about. Just to go back a bit on the stroke, the ones I was speaking about, the blockage, that's what we call an ischemic stroke, because you don't get any oxygen. But then you have the hemorrhagic or bleeding stroke, where the high blood pressure causes the pipes in your brain to burst, and you get a stroke. Okay? So there are the two types of stroke, the ischemic and the hemorrhagic, which is related to the hypertension, and the hypertension is related to increased salt intake. Now, this increased salt intake, we get it from all the canned foods, and that's what we live on, the canned foods. A lady came to my office this afternoon. Her pressure was 220 over 110. Hypertensive. And she just told me, Dr. Wood, I just can't get it down. So then, we have to sit down. What are you eating? But I am eating well. She had sausage this morning, and she had some bread, which is very salt. Our bread, it tastes really nice, with high salt content. The sausage, high salt content. And the whole weekend, she was eating saltfish. Okay? So the salt, and she's already having some kidney issues as well. So once you have the high blood pressure, you have the kidney issues, you have the strokes, etc., and you can cause serious damage. So yes, normally when you're diabetic, we normally say it goes hand in hand with being hypertensive. It all comes down to healthy eating, healthy choices. As I said to you before, if you don't know, find your doctor. We can link you up with the nutritionist, and we can teach you what and what not to eat. Okay?
That was the last thing? Oh, okay. Okay, but as much as we were speaking about other health things, I still have to ask a little question to be interactive. Actually, well, yes, I'm going to ask it. How many people here took the option of getting the COVID vaccine? At the end of the day, your personal health, if you want to keep it private, that's fine. But if you wish to let us know. Okay, well, I would like to encourage as many people as possible, if you haven't gotten it, to, I wouldn't just directly say, go and get the vaccine. I would instead tell you to get as much information as you can on the vaccine and make an informed decision about it at the end of the day, if you think it's right for you, if you don't think it's right for you, if you're told it's not right for you. And also look at the possible benefits. To round it, I would think to round off tonight, if anyone has any questions about that, as much as we can answer from this setting, if we have to refer, we refer, but as much as we can answer from this setting, if there's any question anyone has, there's a lot of misinformation and some exaggerated information. Oh, can you hear me? Sorry. There's a lot of misinformation and exaggerated information and some other things out there. That's one of the things in which if we tell you to Google it, it might have some difficulty. So if there are any questions, then okay. Yes? Oh, sorry.
Yes, Doc, I know some people who went and take it, and they get sick. And they're still sick at the moment. They ain't gone back to work yet.
How long has this been?
It was week or 4.
Oh, normally the ill feeling would only be like a week. The ill feeling, We have to make sure that the symptoms afterwards that they're not extreme, but getting a little bit ill from it, it's actually not, it's not that bad a thing. It's showing that your body is having a decent immune response. So it might be a good sign if you get some mild symptoms, as long as it's not the extreme symptoms that's going to be knocking you out. But normally people only experience that, if they experience it, they only experience it for a couple of days. I don't know, about the week before.
If that is the problem, I think those persons need to see their doctor.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I think they should see.
It could be something else.
Yeah.
That is happening and not is not related to the vaccine.
But it's good. It's good.
No? Okay.
Yes, good night, Doc.
Good evening.
My question is, can a diabetic person just go and take the vaccine, or do we have to consult with our doctor?
Actually, as a diabetic person, if you are the one to contract the actual virus, it tends to not have as good an outcome as somebody that's not diabetic. So it would assist you to one of two things: either not get COVID at all, or get the vaccine. What we normally recommend is that if you have one of these known chronic ailments, that you have it under control. That's all. So if you're diabetic, make sure that your blood sugar is under control. If you're hypertensive, make sure your blood pressure is under control. Whatever you are undergoing, just make sure it's under control. That's the main piece of advice. But it would benefit a diabetic.
Good night. I know a gentleman, he's bedridden. He had a stroke for about almost 11 years. And he would like to know if he can take the vaccine, if it's good for him at his state. He cannot do nothing for himself, so I'd like to know.
How old is he?
He's now 74, but he's bedridden for about 11 years now. He had a stroke. He can't do nothing for himself. All he can do, he can speak. He have a mouth. He can speak. He can't even move his body that good. But he'd like to know if he's capable to take the vaccine. If it's something.
If it's up to me, I would. I mean, with the vaccine, the goal is that the goal which we are aiming for is for at least 70% of persons to 70% of persons in the required age range to get vaccinated. I think that's the last requirement which I saw, which means that 30% of people, the other 30% that cannot get it would be 30% that's protected. And, oh, sorry, I was saying that from what I read, it's 70% of persons to get vaccinated, and the other 30% would be persons that couldn't get it. I think in his case, because he is that ill, I wouldn't say he should be one to rush to get the vaccine, at least not at this time. And I think it would be more important for everybody else to try to get vaccinated, everybody else around him get vaccinated, such that he could be prevented from getting basically the exposure, since it wouldn't be wise for him to get it himself. I'm just assuming if he had a stroke and he's bedridden for so long, he probably has issues with his cholesterol, or he probably has issues with his blood clotting indices, he probably has issues with generally just like the inflammatory system. I'm just thinking that certain things might be wrong, which would...
because the fact that he's bedridden for so long, that would mean that his body will not be functioning as somebody who is not sick like him. So probably getting the vaccine, it may actually put him in a bad position. So somebody like him, I would probably say to hold off.
That's why I think.
However, the persons around him, because what we have to remember is not everyone will be able to take it, number one. And that is why we are encouraging the persons who can take it to take it. Of course, your system has to be up to scratch to take it, because if your system is weak, then it can cause you to have some serious effects. So for him, I would probably, and remember, we don't know what type of stroke he had. You know, you have two types of stroke. One can cause from, blood clots, etc. We have to be honest. We are listening to the news. There are still some issues around vaccines and blood clots, etc.
Yeah.
So I would basically have that patient withhold a while, stay away a while, and have the other persons around him to do so.
Okay, another part of this question, does someone who have asthma attack and they're going through menopause, they say they have a lot of pain, should you encourage them to take their vaccine?
I mean, as Dr. Morton said, once everything is controlled, if your asthma is controlled, menopause is not a disease. Menopause is something physiologic, so you can take it. Menopause is supposed to happen. What that person would need to do, if they're having all the hot flashes from the menopause, they're having whatever effects from the menopause, get that under control, get the asthma under control, and yes, that person can eventually take it.
But going to menopause take you to a phase, so that would not, you have to go to all the hot flashes for maybe a couple of years before you settle down. So to me, from what the person...
you would take other medication going through menopause, the vaccine, no problem, thank you, sir.
Yes.
You would take other medication going through menopause. If you have to do surgery, you would do surgery menopause. So the vaccine is just another thing added to you going through menopause.
Oh, okay, thank you.
But as I said, it comes down to the individual. Get your facts. Go and have a one-on-one with your doctor so you can lay out everything that you have. Because there may be something that you're experiencing during menopause that I might say to you, you know what, let's hold up a while, and then you can think about the vaccine. This may not be the forum for you to give me all the nitty-gritty, but see your doctor, sit down, lay all the cards on the table, and then you and the doctor will decide whether it is good for you or not to have the vaccine.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I see the clock behind me. It's getting very late. We've been here speaking for quite some time. So we'd just like to wrap up this evening's proceedings. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I'm glad that this was a nice forum. It was an interactive forum. There were lots of questions. I'm glad that nobody was too shy to say what was on their mind. I'm hoping that with the information that was I'm hoping that with the information that was passed on this evening, that everyone has a lot more, they're a lot more informed with regards to their own health, being able to take charge of their own health, especially during this pandemic. We have to not be tunnel visioned and tunnel focused. We have to ensure that all aspects of our bodies, all aspects of our health are well taken care of and that we don't forget these important things. And just as Dr. Woodley said, you have to take care of yourself such that you can take care of other people. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for coming again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of our minister and on behalf of the members of the Ebenezer congregation and our visiting family and friends, I would just like to express my appreciation to the doctors for sharing your wealth of knowledge and experience. I know doctors are on call 24 hours, and I'm sure you have a lot of missed calls and texts on your phones right now. So it shows that you have made a huge sacrifice to be here, and for that we truly appreciate it. So thank you very much. The information shared for me, it was very useful and beneficial. It was informative. And I would just like to encourage all of us, including myself, to go and do our necessary checks, have a relationship with your doctor so that we can all live healthy and productive lives. So once again, thank you for taking the time and joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it.
No problem.
Dr. Woodley, thank you very much. This is a recycled bag. You can use it to do your shopping and pick up the vegetables. I was just about to say the same thing. So thank you once again. We're happy to have you. Dr. Morton, thank you very much. We're happy to have you, and thanks for joining us. Dr. Christmas, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're happy to have you here with us. Enjoy.